How come French women don't get fat? As a French woman who spent 5 years living in the US, one question I always got asked was, how come French women don't get fat? How can you guys eat wine and pastries and cheese and all these things and still stay thin? What is your secret? Well, since I am French, a nutritionist, and lived in the United States, I can give you a few pointers. But first, I have to make a little disclaimer. So if you want to skip it, you can go to the timestamp that is right here. Obviously, I'm going to be making a lot of generalizations here. Some French women have none of the habits that I'm going to be talking about, and some American women have them all. And some French women are fat and some American women are thin, of course. I'm really talking about the general public, talking about what I've seen, basing myself off of books and studies as well, but it's really going to be more of an opinion than immediate facts, of course. And also, it's very important to note that being fat has nothing to do with your self-worth. Being fat is not important. I mean, sure, being obese can be unhealthy, but you can also be unhealthy if you're super thin and eat really badly and smoke and drink all the time. I'm really making this video because it's a commonly asked question, and I just want to help people who are looking for 1 or 2 better habits to build. If you're not interested at all, then please do not watch this video. I really don't mean to shame anyone or make anyone feel bad or say that your way of doing things is bad. Not at all. Also, this video is about women, mostly about women, because I'm a woman and I've mostly talked to and observed other women. Of course, that goes without saying that men can also apply all of these things. It's just that society doesn't put this huge pressure on men like it does on women to be super thin and attractive all the time. So obviously, men aren't going to feel as interested or concerned by this video. I mean, prove me wrong if you're a man, but so I think I've covered about what I wanted to say. I'm probably going to be making more disclaimers in the future, but now let's get back to the video. Are French people actually thinner? If you look at the data from 2016, 36.2% of American adults are obese and 21.6% of French adults are obese. French people also have one of the lowest death rates of coronary heart disease in the world. And this observation led to something called the French paradox, where French people would eat all of this high-fat, high-cholesterol foods, but would still have the lowest coronary heart disease death rate. Even if the validity of this French paradox has been disputed since, it still led to some interesting research, and it showed that the French diet was generally healthier than other nations' diets at the time. If you're interested in the sources for what I'm saying, then don't hesitate to check out my blog post about this subject that I will be putting in the description. So even if all French people aren't magically thin, of course, the USA tends to look to France for ways to improve their health instead of the other way around. I'm going to be making 4 main points here. The first one being the French diet, the second one being the French way of eating, the third one being the French relationship with food, and the last one, the French way of living. So first and foremost, what is the French women's diet? As you may have guessed, the main reason why French women don't get fat is their diet. First of all, French people tend to eat more whole, fresh foods than processed foods. Processed foods are generally the exception in a French meal, whereas whole fresh foods are the norm. Our fridges are much smaller than yours, and that's because you don't really need a huge fridge when you have fresh foods, because anyways they get bad, so you have to go do some regular grocery trips in order to get more fresh foods. Whereas if you just have processed foods that never get bad, obviously you're gonna need a big place to store them. French people also eat a ton of fruit and vegetables. I honestly almost never have a meal without at least some sort of fruit or veggie unless I'm eating out. I remember being super surprised when I saw American lunches that had like meat drenched in sauce and tons of refined carbs and like candy bars and juice boxes, and then like 3 little orange slices as a fruit portion. Water is another very important one. Water is really the main beverage in France. Water is always the drink that is served at mealtime. and it's really rare when we have other beverages. Usually it's for like a special occasion. And also, you know that French people love their wine, so yes, some French people have wine for dinner, but usually it's one glass, it's occasionally, and also it's never a replacement for water. They'll still have like a glass of water as well. Portion sizes is another huge difference. Portion sizes in America are so huge. Like literally the biggest portion size in France is the smallest one you can get in America. Not kidding. The thing is, when you get used to having these huge portion sizes, then when you eat regular portion sizes, then you don't feel as satisfied. Even if French people eat their fair share of high fat, high calorie, high sugar processed foods, since the portions are much smaller, then it doesn't really have this big impact on them. Snacking is also super rare in France. I mean, at least in the way that American people do it. In France, we do snack, but for us, snack called le goûter is actually like a meal on its own. It's usually around 4 or 4:30. We have this small meal in order to wait until dinner, because dinner in France is usually around 8. For example, we can have some fruit, some nuts, like a little granola bar, a few biscuits, a little smoothie, some chocolate, and it's nothing like Americans who have like a pantry full of snacks, little 100-calorie pack snack bags, and stuff like that they can just grab on the go all the time, all day, and they don't really have a set time and place to do so. And also, American snacks aren't the same. Often they're like really processed. And snacking is something that I've seen American people do out of boredom or out of habit. And for French people, it's really like a small meal of its own that is here to kind of fuel you up and give you more energy and kind of wait until the next big meal. Now, this next one may be more personal, but I feel like French food has more taste and variety than American food. French people cook with tons of fresh produce, with herbs, with spices, and even like a plate of vegetables tastes amazing. I feel like in America, if the food isn't like deep fried or drenched in sauce or in sugar, then it's kind of bland. I also find the fruit here in France to taste so much better than the fruit in the US. We also eat tons of varied meals here. We have lots of variety. Even in school, I remember for weeks on end, I would be having totally different meals with an appetizer, a meal, and dessert that were all different. Whereas in America, I remember having like the same 3 lunches on rotation all the time, which from a nutrition point of view is not good, because if you're always eating the same meals, then it's gonna take more and more of it to satisfy you, because your taste buds are gonna be kind of like used to the taste, and it's not gonna taste amazing like maybe it did at first. So you're gonna wanna eat more, you're gonna wanna add snacks there, you're gonna wanna add sauce, everything like that to make the meal seem more appetizing. Whereas if you're eating tons of varied food all the time, then you're not gonna feel the need to do that. Finally, I really feel like French people value quality over quantity. Like they would rather have this one piece of grass-fed meat, grass-fed steak from their butcher that they know and love and trust, rather than have processed meat like for lunch and dinner all the time. Obviously, they have cakes and sweets and stuff like that, but they would rather either bake their own, and when I say bake their own, I mean from scratch, not from like a cake mix, or they buy it in like boulangerie, which is where there's like bread and viennoiserie. There's no word for this in English, like croissant, pain au chocolat. I don't know, what do you guys call this? French people prefer doing that over bulk buying industrially processed brownies and cookies every time they go grocery shopping. Also, the whole low fat, low sugar thing isn't really popular here. People would rather have the real version once in a while than have the diet version every day. We know that moderation is key and that we can enjoy whatever we like as long as it's not all the time. What is the French way of eating? Obviously, the French diet is super important, but it's not the only reason why French women don't get fat. The way of eating is also crucial. Food education here is super important compared to the States. From a very young age, kids are served a variety of food and they learn about the different flavors and textures and the benefits of each food. Mealtime is an important part of a French kid's schedule, and they are served 3-course meals that are healthy and balanced. In France, little kids eat the same meals as their parents. I remember going to the US and being really surprised when I saw that parents would make like separate kid-friendly lunches, kid-friendly meals for their kids, which often involved more processed foods and less vegetables. And then they would have their own adult meal later on. In France, there are no kid foods. They're served the same foods as adults, and they grow up liking a huge variety of food that way. And I remember being surprised when I would see American parents have tons of different food options for each kid because none of the kids liked the same foods. In France, kids are taught to just eat what is served. Of course, French kids are allowed to have food preferences and foods that they don't like, and their parents aren't gonna force them to eat it. But in general, they are really less picky because they've been exposed to a bunch of different foods. Another big reason why French women don't get fat is because they practice mindful eating, and they do so without even realizing it. Mindful eating is a technique used to regain control over your eating habits. It enables you to create a connection between your mind and your body while you eat, and also enables you to rediscover the different tastes and pleasures in eating foods. The goal is really to listen to your hunger cues, what your body needs, to eat when you're hungry and to stop when you're full, and to really take the time to eat, take the time to chew, and also focus on your meal without any distractions. And if you're interested in mindful eating, I made a video about it that you can check out right here. French people rarely eat on the go. They have long home-cooked meals with their families, and they also have really long lunch breaks at school or at work. It's between 1 or 2 hours. Whenever I would get a 1-hour break for lunch, I would find that to be super short. This really enables them to eat mindfully and to really savor each and every bite, as opposed to just shoving down their food in a couple of minutes just to curb their hunger. Along those lines, enjoying meals as a family is very important in France. Mealtime is an important part of the day where we can all talk about our days and enjoy a nice filling lunch and eat mindfully. I do remember having the occasional Friday night dinner in front of a movie when I was a kid, but this was definitely not the norm. Like, you would rarely see French families eating lunch or eating dinner with the TV on or in front of the TV. Again, this leads to better food education and more mindful eating. In France, people just also eat out and order takeout much less than in America. Ordering food or eating out just isn't something that people regularly do. It's like kind of a treat, kind of something for a special occasion, or if you have really nothing to eat in your house, but it's pretty rare. I'm always surprised at how frequently American people order food off of food apps without even giving it a second thought. Like literally almost every meal. Like I mentioned before, home-cooked meals are super important here, and people often plan all of their meals so that they can buy all of the ingredients and have them on hand so that they don't find themselves in the situation where they have to order food. And finally, calorie counting isn't really a thing here. People generally know how to create healthy and balanced plates. If you don't know how, you can check out the video I made about that. And they are pretty good at eating the right amount of calories and the right amount of macronutrients. Again, this is thanks to their good food education. They rarely feel the need to count their calories, and fad diets and drastic weight loss methods aren't super popular. And all of this leads to a healthier relationship with food, which is the next big topic I want to discuss. Which relationship do French people have with food? In general, French women have a much healthier relationship with food than American women. They really take pleasure in eating healthy foods, and they aren't really obsessed with food like some American women may be. And if you're interested about how to deal with food obsession, then you can check out the video I made about that here. Obviously, eating is something very enjoyable that French people love doing, but they see it as a healthy and fun and pleasurable way to fuel their bodies, and not as something that they turn to for comfort or that they see as a reward, or it's not something that consumes all of their thoughts the entire day. French women are also less obsessed with their weight than American women. If they gain a few pounds, then they won't really dwell on it too much. They'll just be a little more careful with their food choices until they lose the pounds, and they won't make a big deal out of it. Mireille Juliano, who is the author of the book French Women Don't Get Fat, has this quote, and I think that it sums things up pretty well. She says, "French women take pleasure in staying thin by eating well, while American women see it as a conflict and obsess over it." And if you're interested in buying her book, there's like a super cheap option that I'm going to be putting in the description. On a similar note, French people are also very good at naturally balancing and regulating their meals. Like if they know that they're going to go to a restaurant in the evening, then they're automatically going to have a lighter lunch. And if they end up overeating for one meal, then they'll eat a little bit less during the next meal. And when they do overeat, they don't feel guilty about it. They don't feel food guilt. And if you're interested in food guilt and how to stop food guilt, you can check out the video I made about that here or in the description. They also eat more intuitively than American people, and I also have a whole playlist on intuitive eating if you're interested. And this is certainly the result of their good food education and of more mindful eating habits. Also, they don't really suffer from the all or nothing mentality, which means that if they eat something, if they overeat a little, or if they eat something that they shouldn't have, they'll just be like, oh, okay, it's fine, I'll just make it up later. Whereas American people would tend to say, okay, I just ruined my whole day's worth of eating, might as well just eat this entire cake while I'm at it. And if you're interested in the all or nothing mentality, again, I made a video about that here. This is, I think, in part because they have no restrictions or off-limit foods like a lot of American women do. How the French way of living also helps French people stay thin. The first thing is physical activity. French people don't really tend to necessarily go to the gym more or engage in sports more, but they do tend to be more active. In big cities especially, people walk everywhere, or they take the bike, they take public transportation, nobody takes their car, and this leads to a lot of calorie burning. Let me tell you, I live in Paris, and just going to my college or to my work would take me so long. Like I would have to walk so much, even if I took public transportation, but you have to walk to your subway station, then take all of the stairs, then walk to your work thing, and then you just get so much walking done. Also, French people often take the stairs. There are stairs everywhere. There's like no elevators in Paris, which is actually really sad because it's not accessible at all. American people prefer driving over walking, and this isn't necessarily their fault because I've seen a lot of places in America where you just need to have a car. There's literally nothing around you. You cannot function without a car. But it's always possible to park a little bit further away than where you're going, and that way you can get in some walking. And finally, now this is perhaps the most controversial tip that I really don't want people to get the wrong impression of what I'm saying, so I'm gonna have to make another disclaimer. French women genuinely enjoy taking care of themselves. So, disclaimer. Firstly, being fat doesn't necessarily mean that you're not taking care of yourself at all. Again, I'm just generalizing for comprehension purposes, but you can be fat and take great care of yourself. You can be thin and take really bad care of yourself, you know. And secondly, I actually really like the American way of doing things. So this is really not a judgment and just stating kind of what I've seen and the facts. So I've noticed that for French women, getting dressed, putting on makeup, getting ready, and being mindful of their diet is something that they actually enjoy doing, and it's not something that they see as a constraint. In school or in college, French girls are often dressed in like cute and stylish clothes, even if they're not super comfortable, whereas American girls will prefer comfort. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just saying. I also remember being surprised when I would go to the grocery store in America and see women walking around in like flip-flops and like a pajama shirt and sweatpants. And in France, women get dressed up even to run like small errands. I mean, obviously not all of them, but in general. But what's really important is that French women actually enjoy doing these things. A lot of French women I know actually enjoy getting ready and putting on makeup and expressing themselves through their style, and they would rather do that over be comfortable. I mean, of course you can do both, but again, in general. And if you don't see where I'm trying to get at here, it's that it's the same thing with healthy eating. French women don't see healthy eating as something that is annoying or something that they are obliged to do. They just generally enjoy taking care of their bodies and their health by eating nutritious foods and living in a healthy manner. And this makes it actually much more enjoyable for French women to eat healthy, balanced meals and to eat mindfully and to have this good relationship with food and all of that, because it's something that that they enjoy, whereas American women see it as something kind of that they have to do, that they are obliged to do in order to be healthy, and that's where it kind of differs. And mindset is super, super important when you're trying to be healthy, so I really think that this plays a big role. So basically for French women, it's kind of normal and to be expected to put in a little bit of effort to feel good, to dress good, to look good, and to eat well. But it's something that is actually pleasing to them because they really, really enjoy doing all the things to take care of their bodies. Again, this does not mean that societal standards haven't influenced them, unfairly influenced them to do so, but in the end, they commonly appreciate doing these things. Well, there you have it, the full picture on why French women don't get fat. It lies in their diet, but also in their way of eating, in their relationship with food, and in their way of living. I really hope this video was helpful, but please keep in mind that 1, these are just generalizations, and 2, you don't have to strive for this if you don't want to. I only want to give some advice to those who are actually interested. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye!